want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Hello.
I'm a double.
Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm Jordan Ewell, joined by none other than Brett Ehrlich. Brett, how are you today?
I'm doing all right, Jordan. I'm seated. I'm in place. I put on a sweatshirt and a hat because I was going to be on. I thought about putting on a right side up LA hat because I respect this, and one of those looks like a Gamma Jordan. But I instead just went with the hat I'd already put on.
Well, thanks for letting everyone know. I'm sure that brightens people's Wednesdays. We've got a lot of show today. We've got stories on Iran. We've got more stories on Iran. We've got some funny ones. We got a funny one to end this hour on. And you, of course, don't want to miss hour 2 with Yaz and Waz. So definitely stick around. But let's jump right in, Brett. Iran is playing hardball with the United States while the Trump administration attempts to negotiate an end to the war. But according to the New York Times, Iran is open to the idea of a deal. They reported privately, some Iranian officials had said as late as Tuesday that Iran was considering meeting with US negotiators in Islamabad, Pakistan, over the next week to discuss Trump's proposal, but would not entertain a temporary ceasefire. And on Monday, Trump claimed that talks were already taking place. Take a look.
Mr. President, Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
Well, they're going to have to get themselves better public relations people. We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement.
Meanwhile, Iran is singing a different tune in public. Yesterday, a military spokesperson claimed that the US is, quote, negotiating with itself. Don't call your defeat an agreement. You will see neither your investments in the region nor previous energy and oil prices return. Until it is our will, nothing will return to how it was. That will only happen when the idea of acting against the Iranian people is completely erased from your minds. Now, the US reportedly submitted a 15-point ceasefire plan to Iran. Representatives from Pakistan who reportedly delivered the US plan to Iran told the Associated Press that it would include sanctions relief for Iran, dismantling Iran's nuclear program, restricting its use of missiles, and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Today, US Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt only half denied the plan's existence. Take a look.
Iranian state TV has said that Iran has rejected the U.S.'s 15-point plan to end the war. What's the White House's response to that, and have these talks hit a dead end?
They have not. Talks continue. They are productive, as the president said on Monday, and they continue to be. However, I saw a 15-point plan that was floated in the media. I would caution reporters in this room from reporting about speculative points or speculative plans from anonymous sources. The White House never confirmed that full plan. There are elements of truth to it, but some of the stories I read were not entirely factual.
Now, Iran has reportedly rejected that framework and submitted their own demands, which include reparations for war damage, sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and a ceasefire in Lebanon. Iran has flat out rejected the prospect of negotiations with Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who represented the U.S. in the previous round of talks. An anonymous diplomatic source told The Guardian, with the previous negotiating team, there's no chance. The Iranian side regards the request for negotiations as another round of deception for the US-Israeli regime to find a loophole to aggravate the strikes again. Instead, Iran is reportedly asking to sit down with Vice President J.D. Vance. Brett, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this reported 15-point plan, and why should Iran negotiate with the US after we've seen how the last talks went?
Well, I think one of the reasons they would want to negotiate with the US is like, I don't know exactly what they're facing internally. Like a lot of us here in the States, we don't really know the extent to which they've suffered damages to their infrastructure. We don't really know the extent to which they're willing to at least signal to the United States that anything that the US is doing is, quote, working. What I know for a fact is it is so impressive how little I know as a citizen of the United States about this war I'm paying for. Why are we doing it? Who's in charge? Who's winning? Who's losing? All I know is that like the price of gas is higher, and I don't know what happened to make us start bombing them. A 15-point plan. The only thing I really believe coming out of the White House is that their plan had more points in it than the Iranians, because that is how Trump would consider it a victory. And then like for JD Vance to be the one that they want to talk to, maybe it's related to the fact that in the initial lead up to the first time we went and struck Iran, maybe it was because he was the one who, according to anonymous sources familiar, et cetera, he was the one that was the, quote, skeptical voice in the room. Like maybe it's that, or maybe they just like want to meet the guy who wrote whatever weird, the hillbilly elegy. Maybe they saw the movie and they really like Glenn Close and they want to meet him. Such is the case. What do you think?
Yeah, it could be. They might be. They might be fans of his work. I don't know. My mind went down a rabbit hole when I saw that earlier today. It's like, well, what if they want retribution? I mean, the United States has, I don't know. This seems maybe far-fetched, but the United States has wiped out many top Iranian leaders. What if? I don't know.
They want to slay D. Vance.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But this war, so like you say, is opaque to a lot of people. It's also unpopular with a lot of people, including from some of Trump's most prominent MAGA figures. So today, Representative Nancy Mace authored several alarming posts on X, starting with this one. Just walked out of a House Armed Services briefing on Iran. Let me repeat, I will not support troops on the ground in Iran, even more so after this briefing. She continued, the justifications presented to the American public for the war in Iran were not the same military objectives we were briefed on today in the House Armed Services Committee. This gap is deeply troubling. The longer this war continues, the faster it will lose the support of Congress and the American people. And she wraps up, Washington's war machine is hard at work. They're trying to drag us into Iran to make it another Iraq. We can't let them. And in fact, according to a recent poll, the war has already lost the support of the American people. According to the Associated Press, about 59% of Americans say US military action on Iran has been excessive. About half of Republicans say the US military action has been about right. But relatively few want to see it go further. Only about 2 in 10 Republicans say the US military action has not gone far enough, while 1/4 say it's gone too far. About 6 in 10 Americans somewhat or strongly oppose deploying US troops on the ground to fight Iran, including about 8 in 10 Democrats and roughly half of Republicans. Beyond the Goldilocks just right analysis here, Brett, what do you make of this waning support, and what do you think? We'll get into this more in the next couple blocks, but this does spell disaster for the MAGA coalition, for the Trump base, and Republicans in general, as they're already dealing with massive discontent for prices and other manifestations of this war.
Right. I think this is why it's very important for shows like this one to kind of be in this conversation, talking to people like this, because that is a very key aspect of what is undeniably a wedge issue, right? Like the wedge issue is there are people who in the Trump coalition, they love Trump no matter what. There's also war hawks who just kiss his ass. And then there are truly anti-war people who believed him when he said, we will not get into any more wars. And between that first chunk and the second chunk, there's not really much of a wedge. There's people who just like, it's a cult and they love having Trump as someone to be a fan of. But then there's all these people who are like Nancy Mace, someone who has been friendly to Trump at many points in her career. There's a lot of folks who just go like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever Trump says because I wanna stay in his good graces. And then there's some that will speak out in this point. Now, when they do that, it is incumbent upon people who are against war or who just don't want Republicans to keep winning to get in there, have that conversation and say like, yes, if you want to stop this war, the answer is, given that we've had Trump twice as president and he seems to have completely deluded us and lied to us about being anti-war, we need to step up against this guy, band together and stop this kind of stuff before it gets even worse. As paratroopers are getting sent to Iran to do a ground invasion, and I haven't watched The Princess Bride recently, but one of the key quotes in it is, you've wandered into one of the classic blunders. The most well-known is never get involved in a land war in Asia. And that's what we want to do. Like Iran's sitting there going like, another element I think we'll talk about later is like, there are two kinds of countries in the international arena. Former empires and never empires. We have current and former empires and never empires. The US versus Iran. If you ask people who run Iran, they will tell you we are just a temporarily inconvenienced massive empire, as evidenced by the fact the person currying your position to us used to be part of our empire and will probably be again Pakistan. Not all of it, some of it. And this is the thing that everybody just thinks of themselves. Russia, like probably Italy, as we experienced in World War II, the UK, the US, and many, China, all kinds of places, Japan, think of themselves as former empires. And just how recently was the defeat, at the hands of whom, and who is making my life miserable. As I need to remind you on the international stage, I'm Iran. I control Straits of Hormuz. I control this whole area. That's what I should do. I'm the one, funneling resources to Lebanon so they could fight Israel. I got satellites, bro. You got satellites, but the difference is you're attacking my house. Like you live in DC, that's very far away. You're attacking my house. I'm going to fight harder than you. Also, I'm a former empire. Like I think that's the calculus. And Nancy Mason folks are allergic to that at this point, as well they should be. They should be calling out like, what are we doing? Tell me the last time we had a war of regime change that resulted in something dope for the United States.
Well, there's another angle here as you talk about regime change. Maybe they're doing it, maybe they're not, but new reporting shows maybe it's just a continuation with a different figurehead like we saw in Venezuela. With reports of US and Iran talks appearing flimsy at best and speculation about the health of the current supreme leader, some US analysts point to a different Iranian figure who could be fit for negotiations with the US. But Israeli officials are already raising concerns, and we'll get into that in a moment. But first, who are they considering? Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf, a former Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Air Force commander and Tehran mayor, has denied any talks with the US are underway. He has taunted President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He has called the US-Israeli war with Iran a quagmire, and he served in the Iran Revolutionary Guard during Iran's brutal war with Iraq in the 1980s and is known as a hardliner's hardliner. Now, he has been described by some analysts as a wannabe strongman and a, quote, hardliner with a pragmatic streak. Ghalibaf is considered ruthless and ambitious, but also a competent manager. After a stint as head of the police, he became mayor of Tehran in 2005, a position he held for 12 years. As a politician, he is something of a populist. He has drawn allegations of corruption, which he has denied. He has been lambasted for allegedly amassing personal wealth. He has also bloodied his hands in suppressing political dissent. In 1999, he signed a letter along with other leaders, warning the reformist Mohammad Khatami, who was then president, that if he didn't crack down on student protests, they would. But while this assessment has been taking place, he's on X calling out the Trump administration directly. Our people demand the complete and humiliating punishment of the aggressors. He posted Monday on X. No negotiations with America have taken place. Fake news is intended to manipulate financial and oil markets and to escape the quagmire in which America and Israel are trapped. But if this is the case, and this is somehow the figure that the US thinks they can negotiate with or talk to, Israeli officials say not so fast. Israeli ambassador to the US, Yahail Leiter, while speaking at an event this week, said, when this business about Ghalibaf came up, all of a sudden, this guy's a moderate. I'm here. I'm telling you, Ghalibaf is not a moderate. This may rile some feathers, but I'm committed to telling the truth. He also rebuked the notion that Israel dragged the US into the war. Leiter took pains to argue that there were no significant divisions between the US and Israel, saying the two governments had been in lockstep with one another since last summer's joint military operations against Iranian nuclear facilities. But, quote, lovers have spats too, he noted. Brett.
Pixar, it didn't happen. Who's making out? I want to watch them have love, make love to each other. This is great. I just want to say, we're really bad at choosing the leaders of countries that we regime change. It doesn't work. And I don't need to look very far from this story to find evidence of it, but we the West, so to speak, put in the Shah of Iran, who was overthrown, and now there's this situation. This is, and I don't want to paint Iran as being dope. I don't want to paint a fundamentalist regime that quells protests and treats many women horribly. We all know, we can fill in the blanks on that. That said, it is insane to think that we could just put in someone who will do everything we want. And more specifically, when folks are like, this person is corrupt. A lot of the times, that's the thing we look for when putting in a new person in charge of a country, whether it's there or in South America. We rely on their corruption, but the problem with corruption is that person is always looking for the bigger, better deal, and everybody's characterizations of this next guy falls into that category. I feel like a lot of the times when people on the left looking at the right or right looking at the left, they'll be like, I have to pick a side. This guy is either a good guy or a bad guy. In a situation like this country, you're probably just a damn opportunist, and you're probably wildly corrupt. And I don't really need to look at that country for evidence, because here we have a lot of people in the bastion of democracy that is America who are wildly corrupt. And a lot of the criticisms levied against the Americans throughout all this, some of which you've read, is when I'm looking at these weird movements that I didn't expect from Trump, and I see giant swings based on threats and reneged threats that make certain commodities markets skyrocket, then crater, then skyrocket again, double down on it with Kalshi bets that are a little bit ahead of the game. it just feels like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that when people say America first or no more wars, and you can sign that petition for no more wars at tyt.com, like that's what we're talking about. We're like, what are we doing and why? Also, fundamentally, our relationship with Israel is, you can say, for the good of Judeo-Christianity. I don't really buy it. I think it's more to like safely control the waters of Congress so that like boats full of stuff can get there cheaply. And whatever we're doing now, regardless of if it's righteous or evil, opportunistic or responsible laying down of infrastructure for a prosperous future, in the meantime, it costs twice as much to fill up my tank with gas, and it didn't cost twice as much before you did this. So stop. So stop now. And creating more and more martyrs in Iran, definitely, like for people who can't live in Iran and had to leave because of the revolution, like it makes them feel good, and I don't want to be smart, I don't want to take that away from them, but in the long term, I'm more likely to believe that like a recently martyred leadership will make it harder for the next person to support our goals, not easier.
Yeah, in these types of moments, there's this level of American hubris that seems to dominate the conversation and affect people's judgment. Like you're pointing out, like that you potentially prop up somebody who might have a corruption streak because it could benefit you temporarily. Any outside interference like is going to upset people there. Like they're not stupid. And I think that so many US officials, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, across the board, I don't know if they completely discount that as a possibility, but they don't seem to treat it with the seriousness with which it is required. And we've seen this type of like propping up for decades, especially in Latin and South America, and how much backlash that inspires. And then as a result, how violent it can get in that country as a result, as they try to cling to power with our backing. One of the concerns that there is beyond this person to begin with, one of the concerns the Israeli officials even raised with the US was it's probably not the best idea to try to prop somebody up from the outside. Like there's just like a level of jingoism throughout our foreign policy in the Middle East that just treats them as like illiterate or subhuman, like, oh, these people can't think for themselves, they're backwards. And you've seen it in commentary for years. And here it is again, here comes the big macho US. No, this person's gonna be your leader. Well, that doesn't work. And that's also why it didn't work in Venezuela, despite the repeated attempts over the past several years. That's why they didn't prop up the opposition leader, because they knew there would be backlash. They don't have there's not a general consensus or popular support in that country for somebody different. So I don't know what this is going to look like. Maybe it is this guy, and maybe because he's associated with the regime at least, and the parliament speaker maybe. But I just, the idea of like a kingmaker, the US playing a kingmaker from abroad is not going to end well. Before we go to break, any final thoughts, Brett?
No, I just yeah. I'm good.
All right, we're gonna go to break. We've got more on the other side, so stick around. All right, let's check out some of your comments, starting with tyt.com. I don't know if I like this one, but Marianne DB says, Brett is hilarious. And the only thing that would make us better if John and then it cuts off.
Yeah.
Okay, if John was
not somewhere else, further away from the show,
injured, dead. I'm assuming that's where they took the. Oh, the text was white. Thank you to somebody who is managing comments right now. The text was white and illegible. If John was with them, I was close.
It's not displacing us. That's all I was worried about.
Yeah, we're still part of it.
We'll all be together Sunday.
It's true. Asimov Prophet says, Jordan, there's no way Iran wants to murk JD. They are a lot smarter when it comes to military conflicts than our leadership. They're not going to lose the moral high ground that they have. Maybe, I don't know. Some of the rhetoric coming out of there seems like they want retribution. We are out of time, but we will get to more next break. Welcome back to the Young Turks. I'm Jordan Yule, joined by Brett Ehrlich. And Brett, I've got a question for you. How much do you spend on your cell phone plan?
About Noble Mobile 50.
Okay, great. That was ideally in this scenario, you would say more than $50.
More than $50. I do spend more than $50. Why? Do you have a better way?
Well, what if I told you Noble Mobile gives you unlimited talk, text, and data on the T-Mobile 5G network that actually pays you back for the data you don't use? Your first month, just $10. This is the smarter phone plan, Brett. Make the switch today at tyt.com/switch.
Okay, I wrote that down on my hand.
Are you writing it down? Good.
I'm writing it down. Got it.
Brett, we cover a lot of heavy topics on this show. But what if I told you this next story is an exciting one, a positive one, an interesting one? Would you want to hear it?
I do want to hear it. That's a great cliffhanger.
All right. Democrats flipped 2 more seats on Tuesday night, this time in special elections in Florida. And as we get closer to midterms, the red to blue winning streak has Republicans worried. We'll show you why. But first, some context on these races. In the only state Senate election on the ballot, Democrat Brian Nathan, a Navy veteran, union organizer, and first-time candidate, shocked Republican Representative Josie Tomkow, in the Hillsborough County Senate District 14 contest, winning by just 408 votes, taking 50.25% of the vote to Tomkow's 49.75. Tomkow, however, had a huge fundraising lead over Nathan and was a heavy favorite in a district that Collins won by 10 points in 2022, the last time the seat was on the ballot. Donald Trump won it by more than 7 points in 2024. In the state House race, MAGA headquarters, Mar-a-Lago, now has a Democratic representative. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. In the Palm Beach County House District 87 race that includes Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, Democrat Emily Gregory, a first-time candidate with a public health background, defeated Republican financial advisor John Maples 51-49 in a district that Trump won by more than 10 points in 2024. Now, Democrats have flipped 30 state legislature seats already this year, and some in what were presumed to be safe red districts, which may give us some insight into how things will go in the midterms. The current Real Clear polling generic ballot average has Democrats with around a 5-point margin, a little bit more. But then there's the question of why. Of course, there's many reasons why these are going this way. Brett, I'll bring you in a moment to add your thoughts. But of course, special election turnout is always lower than a general. That's a factor here. But the top line is that Trump is deeply unpopular. Also on Tuesday, a new Reuters Ipsos poll found Trump has reached a new low in approval polling, falling to just 36%, which is a 4-point drop from the week prior. Americans' views on Trump soured significantly with regard to his stewardship over the economy and the cost of living, as gasoline prices have surged since the US and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran on February 28th. Just 25% of respondents approved of Trump's handling of the cost of living, an issue that was at the center of his 2024 presidential election campaign. Brett, so we're at 2 more flips. Things are not looking good for Republicans coming into the midterms. How are Democrats going to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat?
They're gonna defeat from this jaws of victory as they normally do. I don't know, but I do know one thing. My dear friend and fellow ninja star thrower, Tim Pool, tweeted, Democrats are, in the wake of this very story, Democrats are tracking for a supermajority in November as men are quitting in huge numbers. We see men checking out in every political metric from polls, donations, and viewership. And someone responded, Michael Flynn Jr. Everyone that Barron Trump convinced his father to bring in is now gone. Essentially, the podcast bro audiences ranging from Theo Vaughn to Rogan to Schultz to Kill Tony, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as reported yesterday, like, he's down among dudes. Like, not young dudes, dudes. And that, for a Republican, is insane. That is crazy, that is, to quote Weird Science, crazy, insane. Like, unfathomable. And what Trump was able to do is something that Democrats have, or leftists have tried to do, which is awaken people who are not normally voting. Folks that are like disillusioned with the process. Trump got all these dudes to be like, you know what the problem is? And whatever he filled it in with, they were like, you're right about that. Also, I like how you're kind of mean and I'm with you and gonna vote for you because you talk like what I perceive a person to talk like, and everybody else talks like wishy-washy politicians. Now, it did take them 11 years, 12, who knows, like, what is it, 9 years to really come to terms with the fact that he just found a new way to be an F-boy to you, to toot you and boot you, but now they're finding out. And yes, off-cycle elections, particularly special elections, have much lower turnout, but they do tell you who's jazzed about this. Who of the people who are really into it are gonna show up, and it ain't Republicans. That whole thing of getting Trump to mobilize the electorate is gone, and it looks like the Democrats will probably scoop it up. Now, what will they do with that, and how will they message in the wake up, in the way up to that election? We don't know. I haven't had my hair blown back by any of the leadership. Good Lord. But that's my take on it. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, there's several things here. The story yesterday about Republicans in general losing men is wild. I think it also speaks to how, I wouldn't say the party itself, but the broader orbit of the Democratic Party has had an internal conversation. I've had it with countless friends, colleagues, allies in general. All right, we really need to think through how we can speak to men in general. There's a focus on young men, of course. And I don't know how much you could chalk up to that effort, but I know there are a lot of efforts to do that. Honestly, in general, Hassan does has a big part in that. But across the board, I don't think how it's necessarily or exclusively Democratic outreach or a new strategy. It's them seeing what's happening. It's, oh, this guy lied about being anti-war, lied about no new wars. He is clearly implicated in the Epstein stuff. They're clearly trying to hide his involvement in that. They are doing more of Israel's bidding, and the economy sucks. That's the biggest thing. That's it. It's, I can't pay my bills. You promised us you would deliver on this. You made things worse in the first year with the tariffs, and now you're making it even worse after saying, just be patient. This is all gonna work out. Don't worry, the tariffs are gonna help you somehow. Just how many JD Vance interviews have we covered and have we seen where he's like, just be patient. Trump is working on this. We inherited a mess while their tariffs were making everything more expensive. And then you add a new war, which is two-pronged because it goes against a major campaign promise that we knew was insincere, but something they tried to, position themselves in contrast to Harris on, and that's making things more expensive. So it doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna be upset by that if you believed them in 2024. And I think when you're seeing, yes, it is, yeah, it's a special election, of course, but we've seen 30 now, 30 flips. That's alarming. You should be alarmed. But the language and the rhetoric we're seeing from the right, I watch way too much Fox News just because I like to see what they're saying. And also it's good reaction content for other purposes. But
Jordan, you dog.
The message that they're rolling out is one of premature defeat. In the study of sports fan science, which in this case can be applied here, it's, you're going into a big game of this weekend, your quarterback is hurt, your starting quarterback's hurt, and you're expecting you're gonna lose. So you start like preemptively making excuses and conversations with your friends. That's called cutting off future failure, coughing. We're seeing it happen here with Republicans where they're already saying, well, it's no big deal. The president always loses seats in the midterms. They always lose power in the midterms. And it's like, sure, but there's a scale, right? What happened in 2022 was Republicans thought there was going to be some massive red wave, and it was pretty minimal. There was a pretty razor thin margin as a result. They did take power back in the legislature, but it wasn't as big as they were expecting. And Democrats saw that as some sort of moral victory. Here, if we were to take anything from these races, we're talking about red seats in Florida and Texas flipping Democrat. If you can't win the district that Mar-a-Lago is in, I heard this point made elsewhere, but people have flocked to that area just to be close to him. Because he's corrupt. They want to get access to people there, so maybe they can make some money off of his, ripping off of the government. They're flooding that area, and you lose that district? Brother, that is bad news. Yeah, Brett, any final thoughts before we get a break?
One thing I just want to ask you. So, along the way, Dems got to say something, right? I mean, there is one school of thought that's really sad and unfortunate for future change, where the Democrats, and you've heard this on this channel more than anywhere in the world, where Democrats just sit around and their only victories are when someone else fails. And they scoop up and they're like, see, we're winners. But is there a messaging you think is going to be the most important to execute for Democrats so that they don't accidentally steal victory from the jaws of, or defeat from the jaws of victory?
I mean, that's interesting. It's probably cost, but the legacy Democrats are not going to be the ones to make that case.
What do you mean by cost?
You can't roll out Chuck Schumer. You can't roll out any of the top Dem leadership on these, like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. What's your excuse? Why should we believe you? That's the challenge they find themselves in, because they're clinging to old leadership, and nothing really has happened. Nothing different has happened. They're posturing differently, but voters are cynical. People, you look at these approval polls. Yes, Donald Trump is down, but so is the Democratic Party as a whole. So I think it's going to be, how can supporters, how can everyday people, you and me, talk to our friends, talk to our communities, talk to audiences that we have access to about core principles. It's people like AOC. I think Ro Khanna is really good at this. You're seeing new progressive challengers. You want to see people show a fight. As odd as it is, Chris Van Hollen is consistently emerging as like a good messenger, which, having lived in Maryland for 10 years, that was not something I ever thought like, oh, Van Hollen is a star. But okay, sure, I'll take it. Someone new. I think they would be smart. And we're seeing, there's been some reporting over the past couple of weeks that they're gonna maybe try to move towards replacing Schumer. Hopefully soon, hopefully before the election, so you can at least show, hey, we've got a new face on this. There's new people at the helm, and we're taking a different course. Economic messaging is what's going to win. I think the messengers are going to be a key component.
It's going to be crazy, though, if we go with leadership Chris Van Hollen, because then we'd have our first Pakistani in charge. Look it up.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll see you on the other side. All right, let's get into some of your comments here. Let's go to Twitch. Thomas Anakin says, so Brett is essentially saying that all countries have Al Bundy syndrome. I scored 4 touchdowns in 1 game.
Yeah. I used to say Italy, when you go there, it feels like you're summer after senior year with those guys. They're like, we already conquered the world. What do you want, espresso or art? Those are the only 2 options. Maybe some food and some fashion, some history. Someday, though.
Al Bundy was my undergrad commencement speaker, which is
mine was Sandra Day O'Connor.
Of equivalent in equal political and social significance, for sure. Century 22 says we broke all 9 laws of Princess Bride. When you were talking about that Wallace Shawn quote from that movie, I was just thinking, like, he is like out there now, like as an anti-war activist. He's been like very, very active.
Amazing part.
Thank you, bud.
We'll be back.
Oh, we'll be back. Welcome back. It's the Young Turks. I'm Jordan Yule, joined by Brett Ehrlich. And Brett, I gotta tell you, my cell phone bill is too high.
Really? Well, nobile mobile for you guys in Italy. Sign up for 50 euro.
Our producers, nope, sorry. This is just how it goes. You're getting ad reads whether you like it or not. Let's get into our next story, starting with this.
If you want to keep doing this, buddy, you could tell me to check the scoreboard. I'll run circles around you on this, dude. Check the scoreboard. Most unpopular war in American history going in. Check the scoreboard. 13 dead Americans and 150 plus other wounded. Thousands of innocents, including little schoolgirls in Iran, killed. Dead innocent Israelis. Hundreds of dead innocent people in Lebanon. Millions of innocent people being displaced, all at the cost of tens of billions of dollars and destroying Trump's coalition.
You just watched Dave Smith tear into Adam Sosnick on yesterday's episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. The two right-wing commentators were debating the Iran war. Let's hear Smith make his case for why he thinks the war in Iran is not going well.
The big picture here is that clearly the calculation changed for Iran. They no longer feel that it's in their incentive for self-preservation to not strike back and kill Americans or not do maximal damage. And now, clearly, with a younger, more radical Ayatollah who has not promised to not build nuclear weapons, they've made the calculation that actually they can't not give us a bloody nose, that they have to really make this cost us. Otherwise, we'll be back in another few months doing it again. And of course, at the beginning of this war, Donald Trump said this was a full regime change war and called for the people to rise up and overthrow their government. And the people did rise up, Pierce, in support of their martyr Ayatollah. This all relies on two major factors. Think about this, Pierce. It's not just that Donald Trump has to call it quit and declare victory or whatever, but then we got two other entities that are majorly involved in this war, Iran and Israel. Now we know at this point, Iran is saying they're vowing not to stop. They talk a lot of bluster, who knows, maybe they will. But Israel, Pierce, we all know they want the regime change here.
Now, Sosnick only had one brief attempt at making a substantive argument in favor of the war. Here it is.
This was not an easy decision. You think, these guys have been in power 47 years. Everybody in our microwave hustle society wants this done in the next 4 to 7 weeks. It's gonna take some time. And we've already, I was talking to a good Navy SEAL buddy of mine, Navy SEAL. He said, dude, we've taken out 80% of their military capacity. Not bad in less than a month. So let the guy cook a little bit. So you also talk about, Dave, that, oh yeah, they had people out there pro-regime. Yeah, nobody's denying that 10 to maybe 20% max of the country is pro-regime. But what about the 80% of the country? That's like if Dave had a comedy show, there was 100 people that magically showed up to Dave's comedy show. Oh my God, he has so many fans. Dude, there's 100,000 people outside that didn't go to the show. I'm not being like brutish or sarcastic, but just you're taking a small sample size and extrapolating that for the entire country.
Instead of actually debating the Iran war, Sosnick spent much of the show personally attacking Smith. He spent time accosting Smith for calling the US and the IDF the world's worst terrorist organizations. Let's see exactly what Smith said, followed by his back and forth with Sosnick.
The IDF is the worst terrorist organization in the region. Let's get real. The United States of America is arguably the worst terrorist organization in the world. If you want to look over the last 25 years, how many innocent civilians we've slaughtered.
You're saying the United States is a terrorist organization. You've already lost the debate. You live in America, tough guy. You have the luxury of sitting in your little studio with your hooded sweater like you're 17 years old. The regime, you mean all American presidents?
I'm 17
Who's your favorite
years old?
president in the last 50 years?
Adam, I'm 17 years old.
Who's your favorite president in the last 50 years?
I have a wife and children. Who depends on you, Adam? Your mom?
Okay, I also have
if you want to make it personal,
other, so you want to go personal?
You have a significant
Dave,
other.
we can go as personal as we can go.
No, I'm trying not to.
We can go as personal as you want.
Respond to one thing,
I don't care, Dave.
Adam, some substance.
I don't care.
I know, because you don't know anything.
Dave, you're a radical.
So move on. So stop picking a fight with me, dude. You don't know anything about anything.
I just want to say really quick, it's you never really get to see that comedian be funny because he's too busy like arguing with people. But like, thank God you got to see Dave Smith just like be like, I'm gonna crack a joke at your expense because you're ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to get your take, but I want to show people Smith explaining why he made that controversial remark.
What I made the point, and I've made this point a million times on your show, Pierce. I was saying when people come on and say Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, well, just like give me an objective definition of what terrorism means, and then let's apply that standard universally. And if you're going to sit here and say, look, America has given billions, tens of billions of dollars to the IDF in the last few years. We've also, by the way, given a lot of weapons and money here. Your first guest on this show there, the head of the Obama deep state, was using Al-Qaeda, bin Ladenite head choppers on the ground in Libya and in Syria. And yes, Adam, I would also consider it when our politicians lie us into wars that slaughter millions of innocent people and in many cases target those innocent people. I consider that terrorism as well.
Brett, I want to bring you back in here. What do you make of this debate, which is, if you can call it a debate?
That guy Adam is the one who threw like a tampon at Anna during her take. Like, the guy's stupid. And I'm fine saying that. I've said that in many videos. Like, the makeup of the Patrick Bet-David show is this. Patrick Bet-David is very smart and a tactician, right? There's good, smart tacticians out there, right? And he does a really good job, and he's the influencer on that show. The rest are indicators. Indicators is a term I think I came up with it, where it's like Patrick Bet-David throws like potential messaging at these guys, and they represent the morons in the audience. And if Patrick's ideas work with the morons on his panel, then they work with the morons in his audience. And those are, for those of you who have watched like sitcoms growing up, the multicams with the laugh track, those dudes are the laugh track. Their reaction is there simply to make Patrick look smarter. And he's smart, right? He's great at that. I don't agree with him pretty much ever, but that's what's happening. And like Dave Smith is like, has triggered Adam because, and when Adam starts saying like, you look like you're 17 years old, that's the moment where Adam realizes he doesn't know, I think as Dave said himself, anything about anything. And he just has been like, again, like comedians are so good because they have to get people who don't know them to laugh, which is a form of agreement, right? Or just like an involuntary thing. They're wizards, right? They get you to do stuff with their thoughts and words. But a panelist who's just a friend of Patrick Bet-David never has to work on any of those muscles. And when he comes toe to toe with someone who is figuratively jacked from years and years in dark comedy clubs, he gets knocked out. I mean, it was hilarious, right? It was hilarious. Now, if you want to chime in on like the merits of his discussion of what he said, I think you should do that. I just wanted to talk like the meta-psychological dynamic of what was going on that. Even Pierce is like, this is a bloodbath. I'm sorry, I'll hang out and let this moment happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always curious to see what people like Dave have to say on this issue, because I do think, like, you know, like you say with this Sosnick guy, he represents the dummies watching Patrick Bet-David. Dave Smith, I think, represents a good portion of Americans, and especially American men that we just talked about in our last segment, who are now disaffected, just totally checked out. Like, I don't buy this MAGA BS anymore. And what I've liked about him is that he's been pretty consistent. He's like, these are my red lines. You cross them, I'm out. They got crossed, he's out. And he's calling it out. And I would hope that other people and more people who claim that's why they supported Trump are now in a similar position. I think, like we just talked about, these 30 red to blue flips across state legislatures, even in red states, is a sign that is happening. That's why, I don't know. I like Dave Smith when he talks about this kind of stuff. I'm sure we would have points of disagreement. I don't really care. It's a free country. Believe what you want. I don't need to get, it doesn't bother me that we have disagreements, but he's a really good messenger for this kind of stuff. And I love seeing just blind right-wing dummies get embarrassed. Right. It's enjoyable.
And like a lot of people would have lumped those two together as like bro-y dudes. I mean, Dave Smith's not as bro-y, but like bro-y dudes who supported Trump and bought what Trump was saying. But this is the litmus test of like people like Andrew Schultz, Theo Von to a certain extent, what's his name, Joe Rogan, and that like Dave Smith above all of them is the one who was like, I was wrong and I'd like to apologize. I can work with that. I would just phrase it a little differently. It's not that I don't care that we have disagreements. I care that we have disagreements, and something I care even more about is someone who is going to discuss the ideas rather than this perception that they're winning or losing in their desperate attempt to appeal to an audience.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Well, let's get into our last story, and it's a fun one. Tourism in the United States is in the toilet, and only an alpha male like Nick Adams can get it out. Reporting from The Independent claims tourism grew worldwide in 2025, but the US saw a 6% drop last year, according to data from the World Travel and Tourism Council. Further reporting suggests that those numbers are likely to get worse in 2026, with tentpole celebrations on the horizon, such as the World Cup, America's 250th birthday, and the Olympics coming up a couple of years later. Many are asking, what is the Trump administration's plan to combat these dismal numbers? Enter Australian-American MAGA loyalist and self-proclaimed alpha male, Nick Adams. Now, those of you familiar with this show might recognize Nick from some of our previous coverage, but those lucky enough to be unfamiliar with who this person is, we're sorry, but take a look.
M&Ms have just released feminist M&Ms. Yes, you heard me right, feminist M&Ms. Hooters is a wonderful family establishment. And I, for one, am absolutely sick and tired of it being defamed, derided, traduced, and mocked. This is a solemn day in alpha male history. I am here in Dallas, outside the Anheuser-Busch facility, and I cannot believe the betrayal that we are currently witnessing.
Ooh, so that shining example of male excellence who was wearing cargo shorts, presumably within the last year or two, and pronounced it Anheuser, is being tapped for a new position in the White House. Last week, Adams began his role as the special presidential envoy for American tourism, exceptionalism, and national values. Adams took to X to express his gratitude to Trump for the opportunity, stating, "It will be my honor to serve this country as special presidential envoy for American tourism, exceptionalism, and values. I am deeply grateful for President Trump's continued friendship and confidence in me to serve in this critical role. I will thrust forward into this role and never relent in spreading the message of the greatness of America." That post was accompanied by an almost 6-minute video in which he attempts to lay out his duties for this new role. But he manages to only regurgitate vague platitudes about, quote, the story of American greatness. Politico reports that the new role comes after his nomination for the post of US ambassador to Malaysia reportedly fell apart in recent months. So what is the function of this exact position? One can assume it's to serve as the chief marketing executive for a nation besieged by rising gas prices caused by an unpopular war with Iran, rogue ICE agents torturing the citizenry with near impunity, and out of control inflation. It will be Adams' job to convince hesitant travelers to return their tourism dollars to the US. That's a tall order, to be sure. Luckily, we have one of the nation's finest on the job. Take a look.
For the last time, stop sending Pizza Hut pizza to my house. And if you want to really know how I feel about the left's woke precious pizza, I'll show you. I'm off to Hooters with the boys. The boycott stands.
And those boys presumably were just out of frame, having a great time.
It's so good. I'm an alpha male. Please take my word for it. This guy is an ambassador for tourism. Okay. The worst kind of person you can have is an ambassador for tourism is an American tourist. You can hear them from where you're sitting, and they're in Mexico right now. The second, actually probably the even worst way to do it is have an Australian tourist. They're loud and mean. They are, by many surveys that I have seen on internet, the two worst ambassadors for tourism. If you want to drive people away, send a lot of Australians and Americans to that spot. Like, that's an undeniable fact. This dude, like, who's watching those videos and saying, that's my guy? This dude is born in Sydney, Australia, according to the brief Wikipedia-ing I've done. And you know how he came here in the first place? That dude, that brilliant communicator who's like, I'm an alpha male, now watch me get in a golf cart and run over a flimsy pizza box. He came here on an Einstein visa. Like, what? It's horrible. And like, what's so sad is that this is exactly the grift. This is the shilitary industrial complex. You kiss Trump's ass based on BS culture wars that he is magically crafted and other operatives have crafted out of nowhere. And are you doing it for the benefit of the world? Are you doing it for the benefit of the country? Or even the alpha males you say you lead, even though you're the biggest dough ball I've ever seen? No, you're doing it for your own benefit so you can get these perks like being, rejected, but like the ambassador to Malaysia. Like, it's a great job if you can get it. Meanwhile, nobody can get actual jobs here in the United States.
It's like a caricature. It's like a lazy caricature,
right,
of American culture that this guy's latched onto. Like, okay, this is the guy who's going to represent America on the global stage for purposes of tourism. Come see our sexy M&Ms, get your Budweiser that the rest of the world kind of scoffs at because it's just watered down Pilsner. And whatever pizza is currently woke or not woke, that's probably better in other countries. Also Hooters. Like, it's just like,
so sad.
It feels like a lazy caricature from some like coastal elite liberal who's like, oh, this is what people in middle America like. And it's like, no, he's like broadcasting that to the rest of the world. Like, this is the things that I care about. These are the things I'm upset about.
You want to support a good Nick Adams, a former colleague of mine, comedian Nick Adams, has a book called Making Friends with Black People. So buy that instead.
Right. Well, Brett, where can people find more of your work?
If you open the hood of TYT, I'm in there and I'm a greaser. So just, if you have any questions about our fuel injection here, I can answer them. And I make videos on Rebel headquarters and I'm on Damage Report every Friday. Theoretically, I'll be in the Dan Le Batard show, but I'm not sure if that's an April Fool's joke yet.
Well, it's been great. I've got a new YouTube channel. If people want to check it out, it's called It Gets Worse, over on YouTube with friend of TYT, Jules Sudstaltsev.
Sudstaltsev.
Nah, what? I think I said it right. Suzdalstev. It Gets Worse. Check it out. We'd love to have you there. That's all for this hour. Yaz and Waz coming up next.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by a, I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no, he's taking apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sora, Nina Turner. Is Adam Green drop by?
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated? Or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level, it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve. And I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy experience. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real, positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
I can't stand these young people. Get them out of here.
Welcome to the second hour of the Young Turks. I'm your host, Yasmin Aliyah Khan. There's no Cenk tonight, no Anna tonight. So instead you got me and you got Waz. Waz, how's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be back with you guys.
Yeah, of course. We got a lot to talk about on this show. So if you're ready, we'll get right into it. We're gonna start the show off. We're talking about Jesus, sort of. Let's watch.
Senator Cruz and I came up with a plan. It would have worked. We could have had TSA paid by the end of the week.
GOP Senator John Kennedy admitted earlier this week that Donald Trump killed a plan to end the DHS shutdown and restore funding to TSA, all because he refuses to work with the Democrats. So let's hear a little bit more from Senator Kennedy before we go on.
Senator Cruz and I came up with a plan. We said, look, it's a two-step process. The Democrats have offered to open up everything but ICE. Ted and I said, okay, let's accept their offer. And then at the same time, we would offer a bill for reconciliation where we don't need any Democratic votes to do whatever we wanted to do with ICE. And that way we're out of the shutdown and DHS is back open. We submitted that, Senator Cthulhu submitted that to President Trump, as is his right. He said no deals with the Democrats. It would have worked. We could have had TSA paid by the end of the week, but the president said no deal.
All right, so make no mistake, this deal still is favored by the Republicans, especially if ICE funding was passed until a reconciliation bill was passed, which, as Kennedy said, would not require Democratic votes. So Democrats wouldn't get some of their chief demands, such as banning masks for federal agents or requiring judicial warrants if reconciliation were used. Plus, TSA agents would get their paychecks and the security line madness at airports would end, or so they say. But Trump said no to all of the above. The president wants Republicans to stay in DC and keep fighting with Democrats over DHS funding and the Save America Act, the GOP's voter ID and proof of citizenship bill. Not only that, Trump warned that he would publicly slam Senate Republicans if they left town for the upcoming recess. So this isn't really about ICE or TSA. Trump's main focus is his voter ID bill. According to Reuters, Trump told Republicans at a roundtable event in Memphis earlier this week that the voting bill should be included in any agreement to fund DHS. He said, "I'm requesting that the Republican senators do that immediately. You don't have to take a fast vote. Don't worry about Easter or going home. In fact, make this one for Jesus." So he's saying, don't worry about going home for Easter. Spend Easter here with me in Washington, D.C. and do your job for Jesus instead of for the American people, which I guess is good. So Punchbowl added, Trump also said he would invite all the GOP senators and their families for Easter dinner at the White House. Some Republicans took that as a threat, not as a reward, which is really funny. If Trump really cared about what Jesus thinks, though, then maybe he would make a deal instead of being so selfish, but he doesn't know how to do that. This is prosperity doctrine. He is the chosen one. So whatever he wants to happen is what needs to happen, including making the senators work over Easter break. And honestly, I don't feel that badly for them because just do your jobs and then you wouldn't be here in the first place. But the 2-week Easter recess is set to start at the end of this week. So we'll see if they get to go home. Meanwhile, there are 61,000 TSA workers who have gone without pay for 5 weeks because of all of this, with many agents allegedly still digging themselves out of the hole caused by the last shutdown. So they said, we're drowning in debt, and now you ask us to do it again. This is so un-American. We are living paycheck to paycheck already as some of the worst paid federal employees. We're nobodies with the biggest responsibility. Unfortunately, that does sound very American, as America is today. And that is according to Angela Grana. She's a Colorado-based TSA agent who is also the regional vice president of the union, representing TSA workers at 38 airports across the Rockies. And unfortunately, the hardships don't end there, according to Grana, telling USA Today that some employees had been sleeping in their cars at airports because they can't afford the gas to commute. But increasingly, they're just sleeping inside terminals to keep cool. She said it's insulting to TSA workers to watch ICE officers who are getting paid and paid better deployed at airports without actually contributing anything. Yeah, we've all seen the video footage of ICE agents just standing around at airports, not actually helping with anything. They're not checking IDs, they're not helping with crowd control. They're ill-equipped to do anything, and so they're not doing anything, but they are getting paid. And from what we've seen, they're getting paid a very handsome, healthy 6-figure salary. So it goes without saying that Trump could have ended all of this, so his fellow Americans don't actually have to suffer to survive. We shouldn't have paid workers who are working, having to sleep in their cars. I'm sorry, workers who should be paid, not getting paid, and then having to sleep in their cars just to continue to do their jobs. But Donald Trump is too proud of a man, and he is always focused on the wrong issues. They have told us that they are not concerned right now about the American people. They're not concerned about our affordability crisis. They're not concerned about the fact that people can't afford groceries, or like we heard in this story, they can't afford gas. So things are pretty dire, and I can't imagine that this is endearing Trump to anyone.
Yeah, nobody's surprised by any of this. And, if you see what the TSA officers are doing, is the reason why they're standing around is because they're not trained for this. They're not trained to do the actual jobs that TSA workers do. And the reason why Trump is so stuck on this voter ID, basically voter suppression, and mail-in ballot stuff that he's so stuck on is because he thinks it's gonna actually help Republicans in the midterm. I think he kind of understands that his presidency is pretty much DOA. It's kind of cooked. He expended all his political capital on a ridiculous tax cut for the richest people ever. Also on horrible tariffs. And now he's plunged the country into war. And so he's done. His approval ratings are, below sea level by 1 million miles. And I think he sees the voter suppression and thereby stemming the tide in the midterms as his last ditch effort to sort of rescue his presidency. But we all know that's not gonna work. The Republicans are going to take a bloodbath in the midterms. Like we see it with the special elections, like all the indications are there. The only thing that I will say that people should be slightly heartened by, if not, even if it's for some of the wrong reasons, while TSA workers are people with absolutely no political capital and no political influence, people who travel a lot are. The business community, wealthier Americans who spend a lot of time at airports, who aren't going to be stand by idly as we continue to see these horrible wait times in TSA lines. That message is gonna actually get through to the White House. And I think because those people are politically powerful, people who travel a lot, I think we're gonna see something get done on this end, even as we see Trump with his bluster publicly.
Yeah, we did hear news that Delta Airlines is withholding the perks that apparently our Congress people were getting all along. And they're saying you don't get perks until you end the shutdown, until you end all of the madness at the airports. I've seen footage from these airports, and this is primarily happening at international airports around the country. So Chicago O'Hare, JFK in New York, IAH Bush Airport here in Houston, and others. And it's been complete madness. And you have the ICE agents there. And then on top of that, at all the other airports across the country, you have TSA agents who are not getting paid. So they're quitting their jobs because they can't afford to go to work and not get paid. Who can do that in this economy and in the way that society has been designed and built for us, But you're absolutely right that there is some kind of economy happening within the airports, especially among flyers. Wealthier people tend to fly more often than others, and they're gonna have some things to say. This can't go on for too much longer. But the thing is, they're putting these ICE agents in the airports. They know that the ICE agents can't actually do anything because they're not told what to do even. There's nobody coordinating this effort. So they're not actually expecting them to be helpful. They're being put there as just like a reminder that this is Trump's America. They're very much his own private military force that he deploys wherever he wants to, as we can see here. They're supposedly supposed to be like picking up illegal immigrants at these international airports, which sounds like it would be very, very confusing for a lot of the international travelers who are not trying to just stay in this country. It's all a big, big mess. And Trump doesn't seem to know what is going on. And that is our segue to our next story, where Trump still does not know what's going on in Iran, even though he has led our entire country into a war with them. So is it possible, though, that Trump maybe doesn't really know what is going on at all in the Middle East? It is very possible. Since the US launched its attack on Iran nearly a month ago, Trump has reportedly been receiving video updates from members of his cabinet. So each day since the start of the war in Iran, US military officials compile a video update for President Donald Trump that shows video of the biggest, most successful strikes on Iranian targets over the previous 48 hours, 3 current US officials and a former US official said. The daily montage typically runs for about 2 minutes, sometimes longer, the official said. One described each daily video as a series of clips of, quote, stuff blowing up. Great, and I guess that's what makes Trump happy. He loves to see it, which is very concerning for the rest of us. Insiders say that Trump can't possibly be briefed on everything going on there, so they just give him a highlight reel of the things that he already likes to see, like the US victories. So since that is most of what he sees, he doesn't actually get a whole lot of information on what Iran is up to, how they're retaliating against us. So one example came this month when 5 US Air Force refueling planes were hit in an Iranian strike at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, according to one of the current US officials. Trump wasn't briefed about the strikes, and he learned what had happened from media reports, the official said. When Trump inquired, he was told the planes weren't badly damaged, the official said. And since Trump is getting a one-sided perspective of the war, he is of course very grumpy that the US media isn't portraying the war more favorably as it does coverage on it, as they send it out to the American people. But if our own government officials know that Trump can only handle 2-minute video snippets of big geopolitical stories, Trump's enemies also know that about him. So we've been seeing some animated AI videos featuring Legos and emojis supposedly coming out of Iran, not necessarily from its government though. And they've been coming out explaining the ongoing conflict to Trump in a way that it feels like they think that he'll be able to understand. I can't show you the whole thing, but these are funny. And also there's audio that I can't show you, but I can show you some of the video. The audio is actually a lot of fun because there's songs involved. Sorry, let's play the video and see it. Yeah, so we got Lego Trump there. He's rolling the dice. The song is actually very catchy. I don't know if you listened to it, but it's a lot of fun. You can see the lyrics up on the screen, and there's like a chorus and everything. So it is very, very catchy. And it's right there. They say "Make America Great Again." They also have a MAGA reference. I think you'll see the MAGA right there. It is "Make Iran Great Again." And it's really just, it's nice. It's a little bit comforting because it is very much blaming everything that's happening on Trump himself, as opposed to like the American people, which I don't know, makes me feel a little bit better. So, it's a good video. He's there with his, and the references to the Epstein files are like, hey, this is the only reason why you're doing any of this is because you don't want to talk about the Epstein files. There was another one that dropped even more recently. This one has a lot of emojis, so let's watch that one. So this one is more of an animated short. It's also about 2 minutes long, and it's a very, very rudimentary explainer of everything going on in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz right now. I think it's called Lord of the Straits is the name of this video. Look, there go the oil prices. They're going up. Trump is a little confused. I don't read Arabic or Farsi, so I don't know what that says. There we go, got him. So it's just like a really funny video that these are the things that are coming out. And the joke is that this is how Trump understands the world, and he only gets to see like the highlights. He only gets to see these 2-minute snippets of everything going on in the world in this war that he started, that he dragged everybody into. Later on in the video, there's a bit where Trump is like asking all of his allies and NATO for help, and they're like, nope, sorry, we can't, no. And it's just embarrassing for us as a country that this is where we're at. Waz, what are your thoughts on this? The president seems ill-informed, and this isn't the first time that something like that has happened. A lot of presidents kind of find themselves in a situation where they have a lot of yes people around them. But Donald Trump really went out of his way to make sure he only had yes people in his orbit. He employed all of these loyalists. He said that's the only thing that he cares about is whether or not people are loyal to him. And he doesn't like to feel bad. He doesn't like to read. So they really dumb things down for him. And it's really concerning considering he's the president and he is in charge of all of our money right now and our lives. He's talking about sending thousands more troops over to Iran right now.
Yeah, I think what you see being demonstrated in a lot of the social media stuff that the Iranians are putting out is they feel very confident in their position, or at least that's what they would like to sort of project to the rest of the world in terms of how they're doing in this war so far. And here's the difference. We get a lot of bluster from Iran and we get a lot of bluster from America, but when Iran points out what they're doing and why, you can tell this is a country who's been preparing for this for like 25 years. Understanding that eventually America was gonna come knocking at their door because that's just the nature of the American empire, and it's and it's, it's thirst for blood and destruction, that eventually their eyes would turn on the country of Iran. And they've been preparing, and everything they do, they're like, look, we close the strait because of this. They hit us here, we hit them there. And if they do this again, we're gonna hit them there. And the consequence is gonna be this. Like, it's, these guys have studied for the tests. That's how you can tell from their messaging about how the war is going. These guys are ready, okay? And also for them, the winning this war just means surviving. This is an actual existential threat. Nobody in their wildest imagination thinks if this doesn't gonna go well for America, this is gonna be the end of US empire, or the end of the American government, or the end of America as we know it. This is a war of pure vanity. This is just straight bully logic. This has nothing to do with our own existence, whereas these guys are fighting for their lives. And when you see Trump come out and talk about, oh, we've destroyed this, oh, we've crashed this, or we dropped this many bombs, they're never talking about strategic, victories. They can't explain to you why this is beneficial to the war effort. Whereas Iran, every single thing they put out, every single move that they make, they're like, here's the logic, and here's what we're prepared to do next. Okay, and here's gonna be the outcome of that. And I think that's what those videos are demonstrating, that they know they're dealing with somebody who's wholly unprepared and has zero grasp of what the situation is.
Yeah, it's embarrassing to watch, and it's concerning to watch, right? And we're spending over $1 billion every day of those are our dollars that are being spent over there on this thing that most of the American people overwhelmingly do not support. Congress has not okayed any of this. The Supreme Court has not gotten involved. The Democrats really haven't done anything. They haven't said anything. They haven't done anything. They haven't tried to stop him. I really don't hear much from the Democrats right now, which is very, very, it's just sad that these are the people that were elected who wanted the job of fighting for the American people, and now they can't even do this.
Never underestimate the cynicism of American politicians. I think the Democrats is two things. They know the war is completely unpopular, and it's draining, it's destroying Trump's approval. It's destroying the public will for his presidency. And then two, ideologically, they hate Iran. They've always hated Iran. And so it's like, whatever, we get to watch Iran get beat up on, and also it tanks Trump's presidency at the same time. So it's a win-win for the Dems.
Yeah, it's a win-win for the Dems and not so much for the rest of us, which is, that's how it is these days, I guess. So this is the new normal. On that note, we're gonna take a break. We have a lot more of our new normal coming up.
I love cows.
Hey everybody, welcome to the social break. We're gonna read some of your comments and see what's going on out there. Boomer Dragon Cat, hi Cat, says, do you think Trump sends the Secret Service to pick him up McDonald's, or have they altered the White House kitchen to accommodate him? That is a great question. I'm almost certain that he sends them out for McDonald's because he loves McDonald's and he trusts McDonald's. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was too paranoid to eat anything from the White House kitchen. Let's see, Dirge says, I think Republicans want to wait to pass the SAVE Act closer to the elections, so there is less time to fight it. SCOTUS loves to do that, do the let it stand for now while we figure it out so the elections can be stolen. There's a lot of things that happen with our government, the way that the three branches work together, that is entirely dysfunctional, but like in a very intentional way. not in a way that helps the American people ever, because why would they do anything for us? And London 444 says, Trump is desperate. If his voting bill isn't passed, he's terrified he'll be impeached. Possibly, but he's already been impeached twice and then nothing actually happened or came from that. So what's another impeachment? He's already doing everything against the will of the people and against the will of Congress. It doesn't seem to bother him. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. It's Wednesday. You got Yaz and Waz with you, and we have a lot more to get to. So let's get right into this next story.
You know, the only two people that were quite disappointed, I don't want to say this, but I have to. I said, Pete and General Raisin Kane, I think this thing's going to be settled very soon. Here they go. Oh, that's too bad. Pete didn't want it to be settled. These guys are doing a great job. That's a good attitude, though, Tom, right? They were not interested in settlement. They were interested in just winning this thing.
All right, so our Defense Department is being run by an actual clown who doesn't know what he's doing. And yesterday, Trump threw the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth under the bus, stating that he's the reason that we're still in this war. According to Trump, Hegseth and General Kane weren't too happy about the US's 15-point plan to end the war. They said, you know what, we want more war. It's very sad that we're trying to end this now. So the New York Times has not seen a copy of the plan, but the officials who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive details, shared some of its broad outlines, saying that it addressed Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear programs. The plan also discusses maritime routes, one official said. Since the beginning of the war, Iran has effectively blocked most Western ships from safely passing through the Strait of Hormuz, the strategic waterway in and out of the Persian Gulf, cutting the global supply of oil and natural gas and sending prices soaring. Iran has responded, basically saying the war will end on their terms, not on Trump's. And at the end of the day, Hegseth doesn't want this war to end because he gets to show off what a strong, strong man he is. Let's watch.
The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield.
Why is he smiling as he's saying all of this? This man is crazy. And as a reminder, yet again, Iran was never an immediate threat to the United States. And we're only in this war because of Israel, whether or not the mainstream media wants to talk about that, that is why we're there. An unnecessary war that we are now a part of. And all of this has led to the death now of at least 13 US service members. And we have this man at the head of everything who is giddy over, what did he say? Operating as viciously as possible. Is he a child, Wise? Like, he sounds like a little boy.
No, but their hands are no longer tied. They could be as vicious as possible to drop, bombs on the heads of school children and kill damn near 200 schoolgirls. That's what Pete Hegseth is bragging about. Their ability to be unrestrained in the violence that they unleash out in the Middle East. It's so stupid, and obviously it's ghoulish and vicious. And these people, it's hard to take any of this stuff serious because the bluster is so cartoonish and buffoonish. Like, it's hard to even be mad. Like, you look like a clown. Nobody actually watches this guy talk, thinks, wow, like, we really got our head in the game and our eyes on the ball. And again, for people to understand, the fact that the United States is even talking about a surrender, or a cessation of hostilities, it just shows that we're not winning. All of we're gonna obliterate the nuclear energy. We're gonna decapitate the regime and do regime change. We're gonna open up the Strait of Hormuz. We're reaching none of those objectives. Nothing. So if we were winning, we'd be pressing our advantages and be like, screw that. We're putting a brand new puppet regime in. Guys, they're gonna love America and love Israel. They're gonna be our little lackeys over there in Iran. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're gonna take over Iran's oil. We're gonna open up the strait. Why would we stop if we were that close to achieving those objectives? The answer is we're not. We're not winning. We're not. No. We're doing a lot of destruction. Our military is very good at that. $1 trillion, we can do a lot of indiscriminate or even targeted destruction to buildings and facilities and all of that stuff. But again, Iran has been preparing for 25 years for this. Okay.
Yeah, no.
And so they know what our capabilities are, Yaz. Like they know, like, all right, they're gonna bomb this. They're gonna bomb the hell out of that. Okay, they think they're gonna invade. All right, we know exactly where they're gonna try to invade from. They're gonna try to attack us from places like, Kuwait and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and the UAE. We'll bomb the hell out of their infrastructure. We'll decimate their oil economy if they keep playing with us. We'll make their lives miserable. We'll turn Dubai into the freaking 4th of July and thereby ruin their freaking tourist economy so they can start putting pressure on the US. Like they've thought about this stuff. And us, we got Pete Hegseth, the biggest meathead doofus I've ever seen in my life. And the American people are supposed to believe we're quote unquote winning this war.
Yeah, that is really a very accurate description of Pete Hegseth, just like a meathead doofus, just like a dude who never matured past the 8th grade. Like I remember kids acting exactly this way in literally the 8th grade. And at the time, as another 8th grader, I was like, those are bad, dumb kids. Like that's who we have running our country right now. But you know what? Hegseth's incompetent as the DOD secretary or DOW secretary, whatever he wants to be called, isn't just evident in his actions in Iran, but it's also evident by his charge on narco terrorism. We've reported extensively on the unnecessary strikes Hegseth led, the charge on drug boats in the Caribbean. But earlier this month, US officials released this video so you can see what's going on down there. So this is showing the destruction of what they stated as a drug trafficking group's training camp in rural Ecuador. That's what they said this was, and you can see them blowing it up. So a Pentagon spokesperson, Sean Parnell, uploaded the video to X on March 6th, writing at the time, he said, under the leadership of President Trump and Secretary Hegseth, the department is uniting partners across the Western Hemisphere to detect, disrupt, and destroy designated terrorist organizations that fuel violence and corruption. We commend President Noboa, the government of Ecuador, and the brave troops of Ecuador's defense and security forces for their partnership in the successful operation against a narco-terrorist supply complex today, disrupting their operations and logistics. And at the request of Ecuador, the Department of War executed targeted action to advance our shared objective of dismantling narco-terrorist networks. This operation demonstrates the power of coordinated action and sends a clear message: narco-terrorist networks will not find refuge in our hemisphere, in the entire hemisphere. Okay. And the US, by the way, believes that it owns and operates and just manages the entire Western Hemisphere. And it was subsequently quote tweeted by Hegseth himself. And he said, yes, as POTUS has said, we are bombing narco terrorists on land as well. Thank you to our partners in Ecuador, much more to come. Yeah, it's an allusion to the fact that they were blowing up drug boats in the Caribbean, even though they never found any drugs there. And then they used that as an excuse to invade Venezuela. I know it happened fairly recently, but it feels like such a long time ago, doesn't it? Because a lot has happened since then. But here's the thing, it wasn't a drug trafficking compound at all that they bombed. It was actually a cattle and dairy farm. So according to a report from the New York Times, workers on the farm told the Times that Ecuadorian soldiers arrived by helicopter on March 3rd, doused several shelters and sheds with gasoline and ignited them after interrogating workers and beating 4 of them with the butts of their guns. 3 of the workers who requested anonymity for fear of retaliation by the government said the soldiers later choked and subjected them to electrical shocks before letting them go. Village residents said Ecuadorian helicopters returned to the farm 3 days later on March 6th and appeared to drop explosives on the farm's smoldering remains. It was at that point, they said, that Ecuadorian soldiers recorded the footage that US and Ecuadorian officials said captured the bombing of the traffickers' compound. So the New York Times does state that although the Pentagon stated they executed targeted action, that's a quote, at the request of Ecuador, those familiar with the operation said US troops had no direct involvement in the strike on the farm. However, 2 US officials who requested anonymity to speak about the operation said US Special Forces had provided guidance to the Ecuadorians in a raid on 2 abandoned homes upriver. One of the officials added that the US military deployed a helicopter to assist Ecuador's strike on the farm, but that the US military had no direct involvement in the bombing. The Ecuadorian government said in the news release that it had relied on US intelligence and support to target the farm, which it said was a camp used to train, quote, about 50 drug traffickers. And adding, Ecuadorian officials also said it was a resting place used by the leader of Comandos de la Frontera, a Colombian armed group that moves cocaine along the Ecuador-Colombia border, according to authorities. But, as I'm sure you can guess, no evidence of any of that has been released. And according to residents, the farm and other homes targeted were not linked to any kind of illicit activity prior to the strike. And Miguel, who bought the farm 6 years ago, stood in the rubble, and he was telling the New York Times that this is an outrage. It's a lie that 50 people trained here. Where are they going to train? Out here in the open, there's no logic. Everywhere you look, there are animals, the cows I milk, the calves, the horses. And he's a dairy and cattle farm owner. And the only thing that Pete Hegseth is good at in this role is lying. I don't know if he did all this just as like a really big propaganda operation was, but he's going after innocent civilians. These people are not looking for a fight. These people are not even trying to get involved in the drug trade. All the trafficking that happens between Ecuador and Colombia, that is something that does need to be dealt with. More so, especially for the people of Ecuador who just want to live their lives. This man was a dairy farmer and he was attacked by the American and Ecuadorian government. What is happening? And this is just the latest in Trump's onslaught of the rest of the world.
I mean, folks just need to sit and think about this for a second. After months of these guys allegedly bombing drug boats, right, in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean, sea, now these guys bomb the hell out of what they call a drug manufacturing property, and it's literally a milk farm. Literally, they were making milk over there. That's what they were doing. They were producing milk. That's like, guys, it's almost as if the entire sort of reason for being of these operations was just lies. And all it felt like to me is just more intimidation. It's just more bullying tactics to our neighbors in the hemisphere to be like, oh, we're the big dogs on the block, and you guys need to do everything and anything we ever say, or else, right? This is the kind of stuff that we're gonna do. And just know that this was all crap from the beginning. So all of those boats they shot down, man. I mean, even at the time, the reporting was these are boats that, without refueling, can't even get to places like Miami, okay? Like these are boats that could only go pretty short distances from South America. These drugs were never coming here. And second, if you were so good at identifying drug boats, we got a US Coast Guard. We could just stop these boats. We have ATF, DEA. We have the Ecuadorian military. Why can't y'all do a raid? Seize these people, arrest them, take them to court, like we always do for drug criminals. And by the way, folks, don't get it twisted, man. When they use the term narco terrorist, it's just degrading the very meaning of a terrorist. Like, it just literally doesn't mean anything. I think back in the days with like Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel, where they're like bombing civilian airplanes because lawyers and like politicians that they don't like are on those planes. You can credibly say these guys are narco traffickers who commit acts of terrorism. Where are the terroristic acts of these alleged traffickers? Like, they don't even bother to try to explain it to us. The contempt that they have for us, they think we're so stupid and just out to lunch. It's incredible, Yaz.
I mean, it is reassuring that they're pulling a lot of the same tricks that they pulled back in 2001, in the early 2000s after 9/11, and they're simply not working as well as they did the last time. It's crazy that they're still trying the same thing over and over again, but I am comforted by the fact that more people are just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's weird that you're talking this way. It's weird that you're saying all these things are happening, but you can't give us any kind of evidence. And to be fair, back in 2003, right, as we were about to invade Iraq, people were asking, like, do you have proof of these weapons of mass destruction? And they were like, it's kind of there. I've seen it, I promise, right? And that was enough. They did what they had to do. And they're trying to do that again. But this time the American people are pushing back more than they were before. But yeah, we've seen them do this exact same thing just earlier this year. So they're just trying to repeat something. And it didn't go well for them the first time. But they still, even with all this opposition, they still continue to attack fishermen in the Caribbean Sea. And they still invaded Venezuela, took all their oil and gave it to Israel. So this administration is just gonna do whatever they wanna do. Which is all the more reason why we have to keep fighting vocally back against them. On that note, we're gonna take another break and we'll be right back with more. Hey everybody, welcome back to the social break. We're gonna check out some of these comments. Let's look at YouTube members' comments. Okay, Kevin Shea says, Yaz on a Wednesday, woo woo, yeah. Yaz on a Wednesday is a different vibe from Yaz on a Friday, that is true. A lot of love for Waz out there. Box says, Yaz's smile is brighter than my future. You know what? It's a good thing that I'm smiling despite everything going on. Okay, Lord Plagueis 02 says, why is ICE being paid but not TSA, not American, so I don't understand. We are American and we barely understand. The reason why ICE is getting paid though is because Trump made sure that they would get paid. He put their funding in his big beautiful bill that he passed, and TSA, they're considered essential workers, so they have to show up for work, even though they will not be getting paid until Congress funds them this round. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't think any other country operates this way, but that's what we've chosen to do. Gummy Riot says, Yaz's nails are on point today. Don't get me started with these nails. Thank you, I think they're very cute, but they're too long for my life. Be right back. All right, welcome back. You got Yaz and Waz here on a Wednesday on the Young Turks. And I just want to remind everybody, we're about to end this hour of the show, but afterwards we do have a members only bonus episode. So if you are a member, you should stick around for that. And if you're not a member, you should consider becoming a member. So with that, we do have a couple more stories for everybody. So let's get right into it.
Why do you care about like who's in charge in Cuba? Who elected you to do that? It's such a bizarre. Like there aren't enough problems in the United States here for you to worry about. Like
that's another side of it.
Really, like I can't even get my mind to a place where I would think it's my call. Like, who runs Cuba? Who runs Haiti? Who runs Mexico? Who runs Iraq? Who runs Iran? Like,
that's a fair
Israel.
That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism. But I mean, do you think it's better for? Do you want this regime to continue to run this country against the wishes of the people?
It's not
that
up
are
to
all
me.
impoverished.
It's not up to me. I live in Washington D.C. I vote in Washington D.C. elections, and I vote in federal elections. Where do you live?
You live in that's fair.
Where do you live?
I live in New York.
So,
and it's not.
Why should you vote? Why should you? Like, what do you have to do with Cuba?
All right, so that was Newsmax host Rob Schmidt thinking that he could pull a fast one on Ryan Grim. Ryan Grim is the co-founder of Dropsite News, and Ryan Grim just returned from Cuba, where he reported on the impact of the US blockade on the people of Cuba. So throughout the 7-minute interview, Grim drove home the point that the US blockade is actually killing people in Cuba. And despite that, Rob Schmidt pressed Ryan Grim on why he traveled to Cuba at all, and Ryan did not hold back. Let's watch.
Why did you travel there to try and support the regime?
I'm a journalist, and the United States is literally killing people. We are killing people. I toured 2 hospitals. One was a pediatric hospital.
Yep.
We implemented a new rule in February that says that if you're a private business, you can import oil. You can import fuel. So the hotel where we were required to stay is allowed by the United States government to have fuel. Hospitals, because they have a publicly run healthcare system, are not allowed to have fuel. I heard a lot of people complaining that the hotel still had power, but the hospitals didn't. Not understanding, apparently, that it is a US rule that blocks the hospitals from getting fuel.
All right, so Ryan went on to describe how hospitals are actually dealing with the power outages. So let's see what he had to say.
I toured the pediatric hospital. You know what the nurses and doctors there told me? They said when the power goes out, they immediately turn on their phone lights and race to the babies on ventilators.
Let me ask you this,
because there's a gap between hold on.
I understand.
Hold on one second.
We're killing babies with
there's
no
a
power.
gap between when the power goes out and when the generator kicks in. That can be up to like 5 or 6, 7 minutes. A baby can die in that time on a ventilator. So they have to take their phone, turn the light on, race and hand pump the ventilator. Because the United States has decided that Mexico can't sell oil and fuel to Cuba.
What does that have to do with the United States?
So the Trump administration continues to starve Cuba of fuel to force a regime change, and conditions on the island are documented as being quite dire, as you heard Ryan Grim was alluding to there. Cuba's infant mortality rate has nearly doubled, and 20% of its population has just left the island. Intercept reporter Lee Schlenker visited the island and described the scene that is playing out in Cuba. He said signs of the oil blockade are everywhere you look. Street corners are turning into trash dumps. Transportation is prohibitively expensive. Inflation is climbing. Food is rotting in ports and refrigerators, and access to running water is intermittent at best. Despite limited access to the most basic supplies, engineers are rolling out new solar infrastructure faster than any other country in the world. Electrical technicians are restoring the country's collapsed power grid even quicker than before. Doctors are saving lives against all odds, and Cubans are inventing workarounds to conditions that seem totally unworkable. So there is a glimmer of hope in humanity that is happening down there. Yesterday on the show, we did Operation Joy, and there was actually somebody who wrote in who has, I believe it was a parent, or their parents were down in Cuba, and they had to spend $4,000 installing, getting solar panels installed on this home. And it worked out because they were told that they don't even notice the power outages anymore. But it shouldn't be the case that a relative in the United States has to pay $4,000 so that you can have access to electricity. And what was interesting about the exchange between the two hosts, between Rob Schmidt and Ryan Grim, is that Rob Schmidt was taking this position that Ryan Grim went down there in an effort to support the regime instead of trying to overthrow the regime. But Ryan Grim was like, no, I went down there as a journalist to report on what's happening, and supporting the people of a country is very different from supporting the regime. And he was very adamant, pushing the point, like, why do you care about the government in Cuba. And the crux of Rob Schmidt's entire point was this government in Cuba is so horrendous to its people. It's so mean to its people. It mistreats its people. And that's why that regime needs to get out of there. And Ryan Grim was like, no, a lot of their suffering right now is very much the result of what we're doing to them. We're the ones who decided that Mexico cannot give oil to Cuba for some reason, even though it's really none of our business. And what's happening is the people down there are suffering in a very acute and demonstrative way. What are your thoughts, Waz?
When these people do this whole, oh, the people, we want to help them, and say, it's just so disingenuous and ridiculous, because again, it ignores the fact that we've taken this posture towards Cuba for 70 years. Actually, yeah, 70 years of the exact same policy because we didn't like their regime. And all it's done is make the lives of everyday Cuban people worse. Like, there's just no, like, I don't understand this logic that babies should die because their ventilators are going offline because we imposed an oil embargo on those people, so that because we don't like their, or realistically, the freaking Cubans in Miami don't like their regime. And look, man, as a leftist, I'm not afraid to be like, look, shouts to them for having their revolution and kicking out Batista's regime and all of that stuff. But you can't deny that Castro's regime was very repressive to Cuban citizens. And there are regime defenders that say, man, there was a logic behind some of that. And it basically redounds to the fact that the United States tried to kill the guy like 45 times. And he decided that, hey man, we're gonna try to stamp this dissent out from the start. I think I don't tend to agree with that logic, but there are people that agree with that. But leave that to the side. You can say the regime is trash, full stop, go ahead. Since when has that been a prerequisite for the United States to mess with your country? I mean, like, have people never heard of General Pinochet? They've never heard of the Contras? They've never heard of the countless repressive right-wing regimes that the United States have propped up in the Caribbean and in South America, which is not to say Saudi Arabia. Hello? Are you kidding me? You want to talk about repressive regimes? The type of people who chop up journalists in a freaking hotel room? And you want to, we just have to do it because the regime is repressive. Like, this is nuts. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Like, have you ever heard of people like Pinochet? Have you ever heard of the Contras? I don't know if they have anymore, like I really don't. And I would like to have so much more faith in the younger generations, but I don't know how much they know about the world, And it seems as though even if they have heard these names before, maybe they don't understand the gravity of what it was like for those people. And admittedly, it's hard, right? If we've lived these cushy lives here in the United States our whole lives, it's very hard to relate to anything going on in a different country. It's hard to understand what life is like down there, especially if you're constantly being fed, some version of like a propagandized version of what life in these other countries is supposed to be. We're told that we're a developed nation as opposed to a developing nation, and that's a worse thing, right? Because they have more greenery than we do, and we're told that's a bad thing, And unfortunately, we have so many people who have such a narrow understanding of the world, and they're very passionate about things like the government in Cuba for some reason. And the whole point that Ryan Grim was trying to drive home is no, it's not good that they have a repressive government. It's not good that any of that, right? But as Americans, why do we assume that we have a say in their government? Let them figure it out. If another country decided that they wanted to come and get rid of our president, that would be a big deal, right? Who has the audacity to come to our country and tell us what to do and how to govern ourselves? It's the same thing. Why does the United States constantly assume and insist that we have the authority to do that anywhere else?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. We hate Donald Trump up here, right?
Yeah.
If some country deprived us of oil and made it so that we had no electricity and was like, they're gonna do this to us, affect our food supply, our electrical grid, and they're gonna do this to us until somehow we get Donald Trump out of, like, who would be cool with that? Like, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunately that is the reality that we're living in today. I mean, this is just typical like United States imperialism and American exceptionalism, and it's happening everywhere. And unfortunately, so many people, including babies, suffer because of it. Sometimes they die and they're forced to live under dire circumstances like no electricity, even though the world that we live in now is very much dependent on electricity. So that's that. We're gonna end that hour there. We have more for you in the bonus episode. So if you're a member, I'll see you there. Bye.